Hello and welcome to a Celtic World. Just as my dogs start barking like maniacs, it's the YouTube channel and podcast that celebrates the fact that Celtic have fans all over the planet. And where in the planet are people representing us from today? Well, we have two in Australia, different ends. We have Bangkok, Thailand, and me in Malaysia. So let's talk to our Aussies. Paul, what up in Perth?
Yeah, good, Gav. Just then before we came on, I'm a little bit tired because I was up at 3 a.m. to watch our former manager triumph. But I will, I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, glad to be back.
I'm going over to Stephen. He's just about to unmute himself so he can say hello to us. Hello, Stephen.
Yeah, hello, Gav. Nice to be here on a Thursday, not in my usual Tuesday slot. Clearly, this is a more intellectual show. You might think of it as the political wing of a Celtic world. So looking forward to some pretty highbrow chat, and my expectations are fairly high.
Yes, there's a very different atmosphere to Monday's show, which had Kaiser, Brian, and Dano, which felt like it could at any time go off the rails. Whereas this is a meeting of adults, it seems, and none more so than the very mature, calming presence of David in Bangkok.
Yes, Gav. Hi, Paul. Hi, Stephen. Hi, colleagues, or folks, rather. Looking forward to bringing the standard down towards more like the standard Monday level. Getting that pish in the chat as quickly as we can. Hail.
Indeed. Yes, from Borheed to Bilbao, 7 lochs to 7 sisters, wherever you happen to be watching from. You're very much part of a Celtic world. And what are we going to be talking about? Well, this. First of all, the news of the world, what's been going on, what are all the subjects that we are itching to talk about. Secondly, we'll look at the Cup final destination, and then a little feature on Tatts Entertainment. What could that be about, I wonder? And then a little bit of Celtic socials. But before we do, there's never just 4 of us in the chat, huh? On a Celtic world, it's a great big family. It's the worldwide CSC. So let's say hello to some of them. Plunge McNugget, he's jealous of Ange. We'll get on to that. Why can't that be us, he says, a bit like Robert Smith. Well, let's talk about that. 420 somewhere. Good morning, all. Maestro is in a sunny Wishy. Are we all familiar with Wishy? Have we been in Wishy? Stephen's probably been in Wishy.
Yeah, I've been in Wishy for a couple of nights out. So yeah, interesting place.
Interesting, he says, leaving that hanging in the air. Oh no, that's not the one I put on. I meant to put up. Gav's highbrow goes right to the back of his head, says John Clements. So straight in with the baldy. And that's not the one I intended to show either from Clements. I was going to say no highbrow chat because Brian's not on. I think that's what he meant. Look, John Clements is so highbrow, he says Brian not's on. That's what you get for slagging me off. Get a Grip. Is that a new name? Haven't seen Get a Grip. Is that a DJ reference?
I assume it's a reference to David Guetta.
Is it Guetta?
Guetta, yeah.
Guetta.
Yeah.
It's pronounced Guetta.
I'll keep you right with the down with the kids stuff.
Shows what I know. Okay, well, let's talk about Daddy Ange rather than being down with the kids. You stayed up to watch this. Here's a tweet from Football Australia. He won trophies with South Melbourne Hellas. He won trophies with Brisbane Roar. He made the Socceroos Asian champions. They don't mention Celtic. And now he's a European champion winning coach with Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, great scenes. It's hard to not be delighted for him, isn't it, generally speaking? If anyone could be, it would probably be me out of the 4 of us, but I'm just being won over by the emotion of the whole event. You delighted, Paul?
I am. I was on the fence about getting up for it. But 3 a.m. here, used to doing that for Celtic often enough. I've got a few United fans, so I really wanted to be able to, if they came at me with nonsense, whether they won or lost, I wanted to be able to actually go, well, I watched the match, I know how it went. You can stick your nonsense up your proverbial. So yeah, I decided to get up, and I guess the way this season has gone for him, and the amount of abuse and shit he's had to take from the typical nonsense English media and a reasonable section of his fan base, and we'll get to them in a minute. I just, like, for ages, I've just been thinking, if he can win this, I'd love it. Like, the perfect scenario for me is he wins it, he shuts everyone up, and then he says, sayonara, see you later, I'm off, and goes somewhere where he's actually appreciated. And I'm, if that happens, and it looks like it probably will, I'm sure he'll end up with another big club, and hopefully one that's got a fan base that's a bit less fickle and a bit less ungrateful. But yeah, delighted. It was far from a classic. It pretty much. I think the most interesting thing about it is how he set the team up. He was happy. He didn't play like a typical Ange ball. He basically was tactically much more defensive. I guess practical.
And he's done
I still think
the last few games, hasn't he?
Yeah, I still first half. I still thought they had less. They had less of the ball the whole game, but he was quite happy with that. But I think when they did have it, they used it better. They were more of a threat than United. Certainly, first half, they got their goal at a really good time just before half time. United, defending was appalling, but they made the most of it. They got in. There'd be a threat from both sides, but particularly from the left side, whipping balls in like that. And they'd had a few little chances prior, and then they made it count. And after that, basically, it was a game of attack versus defense in the second half, and he was happy to sort of defend his lead. They should have scored one on the break a couple of times. Actually, they had really good breaks, and they just didn't. The final pass wasn't there, and that would have made it a whole lot more comfortable. But they defended. United ran out of ideas and played long ball stuff by the end, but they defended really well. They were organised, and yeah, like Vicario made a couple of really good saves. But really, did you think United deserved it? Nah, not really. I think whilst it wasn't a vintage performance, I think they thoroughly deserved the victory. And props to him for going against his usual style and finding a way to win a major tournament. First Australian, first Greek heritage manager to win a European trophy. It's a phenomenal achievement. It's an absolutely phenomenal achievement, and it's a phenomenal achievement regardless. You put it against the backdrop of having most of his midfield missing, having players missing, key players missing all season, the abuse and shit he's had to take from the stands and the media. Well, we know, right? He does incredible stuff. He's a phenomenal manager, and yeah, they really don't deserve him. And I actually hope they agree to pay him out and let him go, rather than him, because that'd be perfect. And then he's got his payoff, and they can hire some other shit manager that it'll be another 20 years before they win a trophy, I would expect.
Okay. All right. Well, Paul has covered so much there. I don't know what else there is to throw over to Stephen and David. Stephen, maybe the Australian angle. I mean, he was an Australian hero before this, but my goodness, he has cemented his position as immortal, hasn't he?
Yeah, without a doubt, it's all over the media here today, as you might expect. Interestingly, I agree with everything Paul said there about the game. They were interviewing there was a lot of on the ground Australian reporters over there in Bilbao, and they were interviewing sports fans, and what a bunch of tosspots that supporter group are. They were asking, is this enough for Ange to stay on as manager? And even if you don't think it is, the hours following a European trophy win, you just be a bit more grateful, be a bit happier, But they were all grumpy and saying, no, it needs to be sacked still, and all this sort of stuff. But my point of view is I'm delighted for Ange as well, and I'm also delighted because I think it's good for Celtic too. And it's good for players and managers if they go on to be successful elsewhere, because some point down the line we're going to be looking for another manager again, and it helps if you can point to guys like Ange who's gone on from Celtic and gone on to greater things. and long may that continue for him. So I'm happy for him, and there was some great scenes at the end there. But having watched the game though, and this has been a big bugbear of mine all season, Man United are absolutely crap. They really are terrible, and in a terrible team, Harry Maguire has got to be the worst player I've ever seen being paid to play football. I had a look up today. He's got 64 caps for England, right? How on earth he's managed to amass that sort of career with that sort of footballing ability or lack thereof is an absolute mystery to me. A terrible, terrible player. And if I'm being honest, it was two pretty poor teams. But I'm very, very, very happy that Spurs got the win, and happy for Ange.
Okay, and David, I mean, it was only the Europa League, but still, we had this conversation. Was it on Monday, I think, where we were talking, or was it before that, about what we would swap for a Europa League final victory? Because playing in the Europa League, nothing to write home about. It's all about the Champions League. But playing in the Europa League final and winning it, that is worth writing home about. Wouldn't we love that?
And obviously, yes, you would love to win any final, but I would agree with Stephen that it must be the worst Man United team in maybe 50 years. I was looking through the squad. I'm not saying I was preparing for this podcast, far from it, but how dare I? But I didn't recognise half the players. I couldn't have told you what position they played. I mean, bizarrely, I think probably Maguire is one of their possibly better players. Fernandes, he's a good player. Casemiro is probably about 30 odd by now. But the rest of them, I mean, player for player, would not get into the Celtic team. Really, I think I say Fernandes, Casemiro, maybe. One of the forwards could maybe get a place on, maybe ahead of Kuhn or on the bench or something. But they were absolutely dreadful. And at least I think for Spurs, they've got more hope for next year. I think they seem to have more sort of decent players. But I mean, the quality was just dreadful. I didn't watch any highlights yesterday. I just saw a lot of commentary about, I think Man United had about 70% possession without really creating much. So for sure next season, if we got to the final and won the final, but I cannot believe that next year we'll have such a low level of quality. I mean, I think the Huns had five teams that got in the top 8. I don't think they won any of the games. I'm not saying they were any good, but I mean, the quality was just dreadful this season. And I think having no teams coming down from the Champions League, means that it's really going back to being a Diddy Cup.
Okay. Well, I think that's enough talk about that game and that trophy. So, congratulations to Ange. Let's get back to matters Celtic, shall we? I want to talk about this, but I want to preface it very carefully as to what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about, is he coming back to Celtic, right? That's, I don't think, ever going to happen. And it's not what I took from watching this interview. I found this interview really, really interesting. And what I liked about it most of all was how he talked about his time at Celtic being like the pinnacle of his career and how he lived his dreams. And, he was scoring goals for fun and the fans were behind him. And he was playing in the Champions League and he was winning trophies. And I found it personally very heartwarming and I shared it with the group. But that wasn't necessarily the response that everybody in the group came out with to watching that video. David, do you want to kick us off with that? What was your response?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering why we were sort of raising it. I was assuming it was more related to the fact that the only people we seem to be linked to these days are ex-players. Is it Christopher Ayer? Is it him? Is it someone else? That's what I kind of thought we were going with it. He was a decent player for us. Scored a lot of goals. But he didn't really create much. He never touched the ball, a bit like Ida last weekend. Only really touches the ball if he's shooting. But for me, what came across above everything else was he's an absolutely huge, egotistical twat, really. That was kind of my take on it. And apologies to Monty again for me talking shite as usual.
Well, there's quite a lot of people agree with you. There's not everyone's as fond of Gigi as I am. I'm very fond of him in my memory. I thought he was excellent for us. And I think he was probably right to move on if he felt that Ange was never going to play him, which he wasn't. And there's this talk of, when his contract came up for review, he was expecting significantly more in terms of wages because he'd proven himself after a year. I'm not suggesting that was just some sort of gentleman's agreement, but maybe there was an element of that. But Stephen, it's time for you to vent your spleen on any suggestion that there's such a thing as a gentleman's agreement in football.
Yeah, well, I mean, gentlemen's agreements have been a theme that's run through the fabric of Celtic down through the years. We had what were known as the Three Amigos back in the 1990s, Paolo Di Canio, George Cadet, and Pierre Van Hooijdonk. And I know all three of them used the same line, that they were promised by Fergus McCann that if they had a good first season, then they would get a pay rise. But that might have washed in the 1990s, but it's not washing today. Everything's highly contractually tied down now. So if you think you're going to if you think you want a pay rise, if you hit certain targets, then you write that into the contract. You don't have verbal agreements. That just doesn't happen anymore, and it's just a load of nonsense. I happen to think we should have kept Gigi. I don't think we replaced him with. We've never really replaced him adequately since he left, and I don't think he does as good a player as Gigi was, to be quite frank. But if he wanted to go, and he clearly did, then we had to let him go. I'm not surprised he looks back in his time at Celtic as the high water point in his career, because he's gone to the MLS, which is always a bit of a strange move to me. And now he's playing in the Mexican League, which is certainly more of a footballing backwater than the SPFL. So I'm not surprised he would consider playing here again. I don't think there's a slightest chance of that happening, but he's maybe just trying to make himself available to any club in Europe who would want to take him back. He's 30 years old now, so he's maybe got one move left in him. But I think he'll probably end up back in Greece, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I don't see a very real problem with it. He obviously does. He fancies himself a bit, and that's okay. There's a bit of arrogance required in top football players, but yeah, he's not coming back to Celtic. He scored some good goals for us and then moved on. Should have kept him a bit longer, but we move on.
Actually, the question I think that the interviewer asked was, he was comparing under Ange whether or not he fitted, and does he think he would fit into a Brendan Rodgers team? And then he sort of took the question and was like, "Hey, what are you saying? You asking me if I think I'd like to come back someday and play under Rodgers? Of course I would." Anyway, that's not quite what was asked. But Paul, I want to come to you on the next slide. Unless you have something burning you want to say about Giakoumakis.
Just like I kind of agree with Stephen that you need a certain level of gallousness to be a top striker. I've got no issue with having a bit of ego. Our manager's got one of the biggest egos on the planet. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need that to have it's a winning mentality, right? I do think from everything he's said and we've heard elsewhere, I think he was underpaid. He signed the contract, so yeah, but typically if you perform at a high level, you'd look at getting a bit of an extension and getting a bump to keep players happy. Clearly, in a one striker system, he was second choice as variation. Some strikers are happy with that. He clearly wasn't. He wanted more game time. Felt underappreciated for a few different reasons, and he decided to go. Reading between the lines, I think he probably does regret being quite as impetuous as he was. But yeah, I'm not one. There was quite a lot of people that were going, the classic example of when a player leaves, they suddenly elevated way better than they ever were. That's a pretty common thing. Same as when a player's on the bench, they become like McCowan's a perfect example. McCowan becomes a superstar if he's on the bench for too long, and he plays and he's good, but he's not better than the first team players. So yeah, I think he did us a turn. The thing I liked most about it was one, he was clearly had a fondness and affection for Celtic. No real surprise there. But it was one of the most honest interviews I've heard in a long time. You know, most players just kind of, you know, give you a straight bat. The interviews are boring as all hell, especially when they're still in their career. Maybe get a bit more interesting after they've retired. But I thought he was pretty honest, and you know, clearly thought there was. I don't think he expects to come back. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have been quite as honest about the dealings behind closed doors if he thought there was any opportunity
with Nicholson.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Here's a question from Monty we better deal with. He hasn't seen Christoph for a while. Do we know if all is okay? Absolutely no idea. I know he's dealing with his father's failing health. So it may just be that that's taking up all of his time. So our best wishes to Christoph, obviously, on that front. So 20 minutes, and we've only covered 2 subjects. We're going to have to increase the pace as we roll through these slides. But I wonder, will Paul be able to keep it short on this one? Here we go.
I'll try.
Because this is going to cause some upset. Matty says we need to be realistic here. This is about Engels. This is a report that Engels is the subject of interest from Atalanta in Serie A. And Matty says we've got to be realistic. He's been underwhelming. So this post annoys at least 2 of us because he's used that word. Been a passenger about 3/4 of the games he's played in. Now Raskin has made the Belgium squad ahead of him, which isn't a good look at all. If we could get 15 to 20 million for him, take it. There's miles better out there. In 1 minute of fury, Paul.
It's not fury. I just think Matty is another one of these idiots that thinks you can find a brilliant player like the drop of a hat and go and sign him and he'll hit the ground running. Like, if you think you can find a player better than Engels will be next season, in the very first season they come to play at Celtic at 19, 20, 21, which is the profile of player we'll be signing to replace him, I think you're absolutely mental. There's obviously a bit of bedding in period. I think he's had, and obviously you think I'm biased because I'm a fan of him. I'm not biased. I genuinely think he has, for a player who's come in 2021 in his first season at the club, yeah, he came for a big fee. I just wish people would forget about the fee. But I say this every time. We insist Celtic spend a lot of money, and when we do, we hold them to higher account than anyone else. It's a nonsense. If he'd been signed for 2 million, he'd be a phenomenal success. So I don't give a shit on the fee. We've got the money. We paid the fee. He's had a great season for a first season. He'll be better next season. You won't find somebody better. Park it, done. I see what the guys think, but no chance you're selling him this season unless it's 30.
Oh,
and you've got somebody else really good lined up that you do think can hit the ground running. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, if he was to leave now, it would be there'd be a great sense of what if about him because he's got bags of potential, no doubt. Stephen, what sort of offer would get you out of bed in the morning to sell Engels?
Oh, look, it's a difficult one to say. I don't think he'll be sold this summer because it doesn't tally with our model. Our model is to keep a player for at least 2 seasons and sell him after the second season. But when he's more or less at the peak of his potential, I don't think Engels is at the peak of his value at the moment. I think there's more to come from Engels. He never had a full pre-season last year, which due to the usual bungling from our board, arguing the toss with a fee with Augsburg. So I'd like to see how he performs next season, having a full pre-season there. And with a better understanding of what the Scottish game's all about. Having said all that, every player has a price, as you say. But I wouldn't be looking to sell Engels for anything less than what would be a club transfer record for us at the moment. So you'd be pushing 30 million before I'd be talking about selling Engels.
Harry Lavery reckons we should sell Kaiser to CJ Novo 992, and I'm back with another brand. New video. That's how he speaks. All right, David. Somebody mentions, look, we've got to be building because the Rangers are coming. Monty says, "Are the Rangers coming?" I want to come to David on this next slide for reaction. Da, da, da. Does that strike fear into your heart?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, obviously, there's no guarantee that Gerard's even coming back to them. I think they're getting all the excuses already that his wife really likes Dubai or wherever it is they actually stay. Last week it was the whatever his name was, the son of the famous manager, Ancelotti. Thank you. This time it's Gerard's coming back, and to be honest, he comes back to a team that's even in more crisis than when he left them, up against a far superior manager, far superior squad. No, I mean, bring it on, but by all means, bring Gerard back. I don't see any concern there at all.
I saw somebody saying, Rangers are only a few players away from challenging us. And based on what? Because they're all leaving. All their good players seem to be out the door, aren't they? Have you been keeping an eye on who's been leaving? All their loan players, Hadji and Cherney and what do you call the defender they had? The young fella, he's off.
Balogun's leaving.
Balogun's gone as well. Mm-hmm. So we've just no idea who we're going to be facing next year.
You could make that argument that they're only a few players away from challenging us, but you could also make that argument of Aberdeen, to be honest with you. And I don't think Rangers are that much ahead of them, or Hibs, or any team that's sitting, second, third, fourth in the SPFL. There's such a big gap between us and the rest. But the only word of caution I would say is, we're not immune to having bad transfer windows. And we've got a big job in our hands this transfer window. We've got a number of positions that need to be filled and need to be improved. And if we fumble that, which we have done in the past, and Rangers were to, by some, fluke land a half decent manager and a few good signings, let's be honest here. All Rangers need to do is work out a way to regularly beat the rest of the SPFL. They've already got a blueprint for beating Celtic. And they managed it a few times last season. So I don't think, I'm not worried about what they do. Really, it's down to what we do. But if we fumble the transfer window, then we might leave the door open for them. So it's all in our hands, though. And as far as Steven Gerrard concerned, I really don't care if Steven Gerrard comes back or not. It'd be good for a laugh just to see him coming back and have Brendan wipe the floor with him and send him back down to Liverpool with his tail between his legs. Because I do remember all the sort of risible chat that he was at Rangers as an apprenticeship for a Liverpool job. I mean, how nonsense does that sound now? I'm not worried about Steven Gerrard at all.
Yeah, no, it would be a good laugh if he came back. Now, there was another thing that came up in our group chat, which was an article. Brendan Rodgers quietly pleased. This was in the Daily Record. Brendan Rodgers quietly pleased Rangers didn't appoint Barry Ferguson. As Celtic told, they escaped real challenge. And this was John Hughes. And the people in our chapter are like, oh my God, John Hughes, that guy from Axom, he's lost his mind. He's talking a load of nonsense. It wasn't actually the John Hughes from Axom. It was former Celtic defender John Hughes believes Brendan Rodgers will be quietly delighted Rangers have chosen not to make Barry Ferguson their boss. So, regardless of the source of it, what a load of nonsense surely that is. I mean, or is that the point that you're making, Stephen? If Barry's got Brendan's number directly in terms of head-to-head, all he has to do is learn how to beat the rest and they're in business. I think that's what they're getting at.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, but that's clearly John Hughes has had one too many head knocks going in for headers in his career. Really nice big guy, John Hughes, and had a decent season at Celtic, but he's not the brightest. not the sharpest tool in the box, then and I think he's just gone for a bit of clickbait there. So yeah, Barry Ferguson's shown that he's not a good manager. Wherever he's been, he's failed. And if they gave him a job next year, I would expect him to fail again. My concern would be we managed to unearth Ange from obscurity. So there are good managers out there who maybe not be known to the wider general footballing public in Scotland, but if they were to get lucky with one of them, then there could be an opportunity there for them to get closer to us, but not with Barry Ferguson. He's not the man.
Paddy Lavish saying Big Chris Sutton is coming to the Crumlin Star next month for Q&A. Those are the ticket prices, and he's running it. Good man, Paddy. Hope it sells out. Any viewers in the north of Ireland, especially Belfast, go along to that. You think these ex-players get sick of telling the same stories over and over again? I mean, Martin O'Neill's being trotted out left, right and centre, isn't he? How many times can he talk about the 6-2 game? I don't think it does his head in.
He's probably got more up his sleeve than that, I would have thought.
All right. Somebody wants to hear you speak, Paul. Has Paul not been speaking enough? Maybe he's been quiet for a little bit. All right, let's move it on then. Halfway through the show, previewing the Aberdeen game. Who's going to start, Paul? You give us your breakdown. And is it Jamesy versus Kuhn? Is that the only real?
I think that's the only. I don't even think it's debatable. I think in terms of form, it's not debatable. I think in terms of what Rodgers might do, it probably is debatable. I think he's got to start. I think he's got to start James Forrest, and if he starts James Forrest, he's got to start him on the right. And if he starts him on the right, then it's got to be Kuhn that drops out. He's not really known for switching sides, so I know there's been a lot of chat and debate about Maeda back through the middle, given his success there, and Jamesy on the left, and the Ida drops out. But to be honest, I don't see that as being a sensible solution. I think there's two things. One, Forrest got to play on the right when the experiment happened last weekend, and he got moved to the left for a bit. It was a complete shambles, and then he was relatively quickly moved back to the right, where he was an immediate threat again. And then it was a shame that Ida and him weren't on the pitch at the same time, because the crossing and supply that James Forrest was putting into the box, particularly the Maeda chance that he headed over the bar when it was easier to score, would have been, he'd been lapping that. Ida would have been lapping that up. It's what I've been calling out for all season. Good supply to the front men between the posts, and Ida will get you goals if you give him that supply. So I think that's that. I'd do that. 100% would do that, and then obviously Maeda plays on the left. That's to me that's isn't it, putting that up? That comment. Oh, thanks very much. Thanks very much. Monty asked for my contribution, and now he thinks he's the only one that's got any sense. So I don't think there's any other. I don't think there's any other positions that are up for debate. I think the rest of the team picks itself. Particularly, even I think the bench could be interesting. I was really disappointed to see McArdle left out. I was calling for my actual start. Never mind be on the bench, but to not make the squad at all, and to have 4 defenders on it, and then to use one of those defenders in midfield in Sloop, I just thought it was just a waste, to be honest. Sloop's almost certainly not going to be our player next season. So yeah, I think McArdle is worthy of a spot in the squad. The bench is probably more interesting than the starting lineup, but I think James Forrest got to start, and he's got to start on the right. And unfortunately for Kuhn, he's the one that misses out.
You have any lineup suggestions for us, David? Anything from left field?
Not left field, actually. I think that they could have quite a few changes, to be honest. This is where Monty can confirm I'm talking shite again. I think that Maeda has been wasted on the wing. I think since the turn of the year, he's been quite significantly the best centre forward in Scotland. Again, best dressed man in Albania, etc. But he's been miles ahead of everyone else. I do appreciate, obviously, that James is better on the right, and Kuhn. Last weekend, Kuhn played on the left. He interchanged quite often. Are we better with Maeda through the centre, or are we better with him on the wing? I don't think Ida deserves a start. I think he was lazy, touched the ball 3 times in 40 minutes. I do appreciate as well that he's almost certainly going to start him. I wouldn't start him. I think there's other positions that are up for grabs as well. I think that Bernardo is lucky that I think that if Hatate had been playing, then Bernardo wouldn't be getting a sniff of it either. I don't think he covered himself in glory at the weekend. I know he's just come back.
Hang on, though. No one did, though. This is the thing that annoys me. Ida's getting pelted. Bernardo's getting pelted. The whole team was shite. The whole team was shite. The whole team was shite in the first half.
I think that I think Bernardo, the last twice when he's started the game, he's not taking his opportunity. I do think that the people on the bench, if we had a better option on the bench, he wouldn't be starting. I think that him, McGregor, and Engels are too samey. So I do think we need to. There's no other option. It's a bit like having Scales as our centre half. Previously, Rodgers had dropped Scales for Trusty. Now, that's not going to happen, but it could have happened. I think there's players there who are going to play because of luck. I think if Jota was fit, we wouldn't be talking about Ida in the centre forward. Because
it's not just because of luck. It's not just because of luck, is it? It's like we're not playing Real Madrid, is it? We're playing bloody Aberdeen, who are dog shit.
Yeah, but you still have to play your best team, Paul.
No, you don't. We played the second string with McGregor up there and gubbed them 5-1 or whatever it was. So, it's not. It doesn't matter who we play. This is the thing. We're having this dialogue, which we've got to do. But honestly, you could put out anybody that's in the 20 and we would beat Aberdeen on the weekend. That's genuinely how I feel. But I think we're mad if we don't play Jamesy on the right, and Ida with a decent supply, which Jamesy will give him, will score you goals, and I think you'll get a goal in the cup final. Sorry, Steve, it's probably your turn.
This is the first time I wouldn't be predicting 5 or 6-0. I think it's going to be. Thank you, Monty. I think it's going to be a lot tighter. Every cup final in the last X number of years, we concede the first goal. It's always tight. We need to start with our best team. I would love to see Ida get a hat-trick, but I just think we're wasted. We've got the best striker in Scotland, and we're playing him on the wing to accommodate someone who is not a patch on him.
Stephen?
Go on, Stephen. Tell me I'm talking shit.
Yeah. Well, what I want to know from Stephen is, does he think Aberdeen are going to present any sort of a challenge? Is it going to be tighter than the previous game? Or, what have we got to fear from Aberdeen?
Well, we've got the same amount to fear from Aberdeen as we had from St Mirren on the weekend there. And like any of these games, as I've said many times in the past, it's all about the first goal and who gets it. St Mirren got themselves in front on the weekend, and we found it really, really hard to claw that back. And if Aberdeen get themselves in front during the final, then we might... if they can then sit in, they can have somebody to hang on to, they can time waste, they can slow the game down, and all of a sudden it becomes a bit of a slog for us. And we have showed some issues this season in that sort of game where we concede first and we're chasing the game. Now, I'm kind of going to go into bat a little bit for Ida here. I don't think he's as bad as many people are making out. I think in general, his hold-up play has been pretty good. I think it's been all right. He does, when the ball goes up to him, it generally tends to stick. I do think he needs to work a little bit more on his pressing and his work rate. But his goals return is, it's there to be examined, and it's as good as anybody else for a guy who's not started very many games at all this season. My other concern with the team is that Maeda, and the suggestion that we play Maeda through the middle, I think Maeda looks absolutely knackered. I think he's desperate. I think he's hanging out for the close season. And we saw that at Ibrox when he had that chance at the death. He just seemed to run out of steam, which is very un-Maeda-like, but it just shows that he is human after all. He's played a lot of games this season. He's put in a lot of kilometres on the pitch. And I think that'd be my concern with playing Maeda through the middle. So I think he will play Maeda on the left, and he will start Ida. I agree with what Paul says about Forrest. I think he should start on the right, but I don't think he will. I think Brendan will start Kuhn on the right, and he'll look to bring Forrest into the game round about the 60-minute mark. And aside from that, if you want a left field suggestion, I would seriously be considering playing Anthony Ralston in front of AJ, because I thought Johnson was absolutely dreadful against St Mirren. And another one who just looks as if he's out on his feet and is hanging out for the close season. So, look, I don't think that's going to happen. But that would be something they could certainly look at, because I think Anthony Ralston's had a couple of really good solid games recently. He showed really good physicality. He's an extra body defending and the high balls into the box, which is something Aberdeen, a threat they can offer. So that if you were looking for a left field suggestion, that would be it from me.
There's a left field suggestion from Jezebel. Get Yang's girlfriend over for Saturday, because Yang tends to play better when his pipes are clean. If we're allowed to say that. We're allowed to say that? Just said it. Okay. Aberdeen haven't won this tournament since, 1990? Is that right? 1990? Yep. That takes us all back.
I was there.
Terrifyingly. 1990
I was there as well.
Years ago. You were all there? Very good.
Yep.
Does it seem like yesterday, or does it seem like 35 years have elapsed since then?
Well, I was a very small child, so yeah, it feels like a long time ago.
There's what else happened in May 1990? Here's some things that happened in May 1990, just to put it into context. The South African government and the ANC began negotiations to dismantle the apartheid system, which, in my mind, that would have happened before 1990. But anyway, the WHO removed homosexuality from the mental disorders list. Hard to believe that it was on it until as recently as 1990, isn't it? Bush and Gorbachev summit begins signaling the endgame for the Cold War. Again, that seems like ancient history now. And Seinfeld premiered the most overrated comedy show of all time. Who wants to disagree with that? Paul's going to jump in and go, absolute classic.
I don't adore Seinfeld like a lot of people do. I enjoy it. I think it's quite good, but I'm not a completist. I've seen bits and pieces. I've seen him do stand-up. I'm not going to defend that wholeheartedly. There's plenty of better comedy out there, usually British.
Yeah, he was never cool, Seinfeld, was he? With his trainers and his bouffant hair and all. He always looked like an absolute prick, didn't he, David?
Well, I wasn't going to talk so much about Seinfeld, but actually yesterday or the day before, Norm from Cheers died.
I saw that. Yeah.
I would say Cheers is probably my favourite ever comedy series. Just absolutely tremendous. And so it was quite sad to see Norm, heading off. I guess being a fat guy that likes a beer was always going to be dear to my heart. But it was sorry to see him go. In terms of the thing about WHO that you mentioned in the 1990s, I mean, it's sad to see we still have some countries in the world where homosexuality can get the death penalty, and some places where we've got female staff who are being threatened about going to work. It's nice to think that these things were prehistoric, but sadly they're not. But I'm not talking about it.
Has anyone been to the Cheers bar in Boston?
Oh, I walked past it.
Yeah.
All three of you have been to the Jesus Christ.
Probably the most disappointing thing that happened to me when my trip to Boston was going into Cheers bar and finding out it doesn't look like that inside.
Yeah, it doesn't look at all like that.
Also, this was way back in the day, and myself and my wife were there, and she got asked for proof of her age before we got in, and I didn't, which I took really personally.
Very good. I bet she loved that. But you said it was a long time ago. So anyway, you were just young whippersnappers in the first flush of romance.
We were, yep. Actually, but no,
Well,
that would be
expand on
probably.
that.
I think it would be pretty early 2000s we were there, maybe 2002. So we were over there for Paris Day. I think it was
Couldn't have been that.
2002. So
You weren't that young then. I was there in 2000 and I was like
no,
20.
I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
early
I wasn't
20s.
that young. Just for the avoidance of doubt, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't asked for proof of ID, but I was more surprised that my wife was, which she was quite happy to remind me of for a long time afterwards.
Isn't it amazing that Woody Harrelson has gone on to achieve everything he's achieved since his Cheers days? You would never have picked him to be like the standout star after Cheers, would you?
No, you would not. Yeah.
My microphone working?
No, it is. I'll defer to the guys that are old enough to be more across Cheers than obviously me.
Alrighty then. Well, let's move it on. Let's get on to Tatts Entertainment. We featured somebody who had a tattoo, which was some sort of variation of this, swirly 8 victory. And he was worried, like, how is he going to update this if we were to make the fabled 9, after which the show is named. Do we have any tattoos among us here? David, tell us about your tats.
So one of my tattoos, I'll try not to cry. My dog died last August, so we got his paw print, but he got his paw print put on a card, and I had a tattoo put on, and then I've got a Celtic cross, and I'm hoping it's the Chinese star sign for the year of the animal for the year of my birth. So it should be a goat, but it's probably a toga or something. But I've got 3 tattoos.
Very good. Stephen, you must have one on your upper left arm. I picture one there. I don't know. I don't know why I picture one.
Yeah, I've got a few. I've got my 2 kids' names tattooed, one at the top of my back and one at the bottom. I've got a Celtic crest on my right leg, and I've got a little fighting Irishman on my right arm, upper right arm, as Gav rightly points out. So that's it at the moment. I'm actually thinking about adding to that soon. So watch this space.
Celtic World logo or something.
Something like that,
yeah. I'm guessing Paul doesn't have any marks on his body.
I've become a rebel and I've decided not to have a tattoo because every man and his dog's got a tattoo. No, to be honest, if one of my 2 dogs passed away, that's about as much as might push me to do it. But so far, I've been tempted down the years, but I've sort of then going, oh, how many beers is it? And how much time is it? I can probably spend that money elsewhere. So yeah, no, I'm tattoo-less. Although my brother started getting tattoos, he's a year younger than me. He started getting tattoos in the last few years. So some people would call that midlife crisis. Other people would call it, just doing what you want. My mum got one a couple of years ago. She's just shy. She's 70 this year. She got one a couple of years.
Goodness me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
wasn't a horse's arse or something?
Wasn't a horse's arse. I wish it was. I wish it was. No. It was a thistle and a shamrock entwined on her arm. For the Irish and Scottish heritage, yeah.
I guess it's all cyclical, the trend, and we're sort of in between 2 trends, me and you, Paul, in terms of age. Would that be right? I'm putting myself in the same age bracket as you, and not those 2.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you're only a few years older, aren't you? Like you're closer to me than them 2.
That's probably true.
To get a grips point, I've had multiple piercings down the years, so I'm not afraid of a little bit of pain. But no, I've just stopped short of tattoo. Yeah, no, yeah, I stopped short of the Prince Albert. I had multiple ears and nipple, all since
nipples.
Yeah, I had one nipple. One nipple was pierced. Yeah, but that's I took it out from as a wedding present to my wife. She, after 10 years or 8 years or 9 years, she'd been hassling me, and I was like, as a nice little gesture on ahead of our wedding, I took it out.
Oh, that is very
There you
funny.
go. The things you learn as the close season comes hurtling towards us.
John Clement says, I had my kids' names tattooed on my arm, then years later I found out I wasn't the dad.
That's a joke,
And,
surely.
John, for fuck's sake, please tell me that's a joke. So, is that going to come up? No, we might just leave it at that. We'll just leave it out there. Don't know if it's a joke. It might be, might not be. Who knows? That's exciting. All right. Yeah, well, a little bit more on Tatts then. Here's a good one. Treble. They reckon the Celtic fan then learned he spelled treble wrong. But, maybe that's what he meant. Rebel. Who knows? There's you talk about your mum getting one. Here's somebody's grandmother getting one on their left arm. Glasgow Celtic. But there's, for every old bad one, there's some absolute beauties. I mean, look at that. That's a work of art. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's really good.
That's nice. This one is also good, where they have the sort of the fabric. Look how real that looks. Fond of that one.
That's good.
And probably the best of all is this. Don't know if you've seen that. That just looks magnificent.
That's
I mean,
good.
tattoos used to just be bluey black, horrible things. But now the
I think
colours
it's got a rule of
much better.
the rule of thumb with a tattoo for me is don't ever get anybody's face, because they never get it right. And all these sort of tattoo fails you see all over the social media, it's always somebody's face. It always looks nothing like the person it's meant to be. And that's so avoid that at all costs.
It was a joke, says John Clements.
Of course it was.
So that's a relief. Somebody mentioned grot bags. That's funny you should mention grot bags. Who's this niche? I saw grot bags somewhere. Did somebody else come across grot bags on Twitter? There was a tweet went out about grot bags. I don't know where that came from. All right. Well, that covers the tattoo section then. So we've only got a few minutes left. Paul, you're a big fan of Fitbad tweets. I don't know if you saw this, that he sort of showed how this one's put together. If you're into this kind of thing, here's a time lapse of the Celtic treble design. So you can see him adding one player after another. Want to talk us through who you think some of these players are? Oh, this is from last year, by the way. Or no, this is from 22-23, I think.
Must be. This is Ange's treble, isn't it? So yeah. I haven't seen this yet, but you're right. I am a big fan of Fitbad tweets. Obviously, CCV's there. Abada is the ghost. I think that's Anthony Ralston with the beard on the left. That's Starfelt. There's Callum McGregor. I think that's James E on the far left. Kyogo, obviously. Not sure who this is down on the right-hand side.
The long neck, of course. The swan neck
that's
of
Joe Hart, obviously.
Joe Hart, yeah.
Are the curtains Rio at the time? Is it? And Maeda?
Yeah.
I'm not sure who's the. Oh, is that AJ giving it the guns? I think it is. There's Aaron Moy, Jota. Who's that down the front with the big hair?
Roy Aitken.
Roy Aitken. Well, he's still there as long as
Turnbull. I guess
Ange's around.
Yeah. Anyway, very good.
Yeah. Although I wonder, did you see this on social media anyway? That Torquay United have appointed a supporter liaison officer who goes by the name of Paul Bastard. That is his genuine name, Paul Bastard. Torquay United
I've been called that a few times down the years.
Long-time supporter Paul Bastard has been appointed. I mean, how do you go through life with a name like Bastard?
Right. What's your school? What's your school life look like? You know, he must have been mercilessly bullied. How do you get out of that without some sort of mental condition? I mean,
Well, he's a Torquay fan, so obviously he hasn't.
Yeah. I mean, how does that evolve through the years? You know, obviously there's a lot of history behind surnames and how they became what they are. In Scotland we have the Macs, and in Ireland they got the O's. But how do you end up with a name like Bastard? Where does that come from? You know, unless somebody in your
Didn't know his dad.
bloodline somewhere was literally a bastard and it just stuck.
Has to be. Has to be that. Just what's the father's name? Nobody knows. Oh, poor bastard. What's that?
Put that down. Yeah, pop it down.
No,
I think it's disappointing from the parents that they've not come up with that the parents haven't come up with a better first name. I mean, Paul Bastard doesn't really sort of slip off the tongue, does it? I mean, could you have like
what else would you suggest?
You've not been in my house when I've had too many beers, otherwise it slips off the tongue and treat.
Yeah, they could have been a bit more imaginative, I think. Yeah, definitely.
Smell the glove. Alan Bastard, of course, in the New Statesman. Yeah. Go ahead, Stephen.
It's fantastic.
You should have called him Orange.
Orange Bastard. That's what somebody said. Orange Bastard. Of course, I do have a little tweet here about Alan Bastard. I absolutely love this. I thought it was one of the best things that Rick Mayall did. Absolutely amazing show, New Statesman. Remember it very fondly. And of course, it was meant to be lampooning what it would be like if there was such a complete far-right maniac such as him in the Tory party. And now when you look back at Alan Bastard, it's like, you know, that's what they're like these days. Politics has moved so far right. He wouldn't be out of place in the Labour Party either.
I was just going to say he bloody left to Keir Starmer. Sorry, Sir Keir Starmer. Absolutely shocking. I once saw Rick do Alan Bastard live theatre show. I think in Aberdeen, I think, or Glasgow, one of the two. My mum bought it as a birthday present. He was absolutely brilliant. It was a fantastic show. Yeah, really, really good.
All big fans of the New Statesman, David?
So much New Statesman. I liked. I would like to try and get back into. I don't know if you ever watched The Thick of It, which Indeed. Was very. I think it was what was the name of the Scottish guy in it that everyone was terrified of?
Malcolm Tucker.
Malcolm Tucker. Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff Rick Mayall's done is brilliant, but I don't know why. I don't know where I was when the New Statesman was about.
Yeah. Tucker was good as well, though. Come the fuck in or fuck the fuck off. Classic.
Yeah. Sorry if there's any children watching. I apologise for that language. This show wasn't marked as suitable for children. That was an incident we had the other day with the drink along. Nowadays, if you don't click that it's not made for kids, the default setting in YouTube is it's made for kids, which means it doesn't allow any comments, you know. But don't worry about that. Here's a much more important message.
Pay attention. This is totally free and great crack. The least you can do is subscribe. Do it now. Cheers.
Yes, as we push hard to get up to 1.8 thousand before the end of the season. I was going for 2, but the glacial movements are such that I'm paring back my expectations a bit, David. Going for 1.8. Can we make it to 1.8 thousand, do you think, before the end of the season? Can't be that hard.
Definitely.
Well,
definitely.
Okay, get a grip. It was just a baby. Well, are we showing our age here with all this talk about Cheers, the New Statesman? Thick of it wasn't that long ago. Guess we are.
It's about 50 years ago, to be fair.
Well, everything seems recent to me. That probably was, wasn't it? Okay, we're going to have to let Brian come in with an old classic joke. He's obviously behind here, but I have a tattoo which, when flaccid, says WY. Then it usually says, "Welcome to Jamaica. Have a happy holiday." Wow, wow, wow.
Dear, oh dear.
Thank you for that one, Brian. I don't. Oh, it's. On that bombshell, I think we'll wrap it up. Gentlemen, any final thoughts for everyone? Let's go to Stephen first of all.
No, just looking forward to the cup final and hoping we can put a nice bow on what's been a really good season, and we can sort of relax, put the feet up, and recharge over the summer months. Got a trip home planned. So I'm heading home in the middle of June for a month. So very excited about that, and it's good to be able to do that with another league championship tucked under the belt. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the cup final. I'll be heading into the city to Scruffy Murphy's to watch that for a midnight kickoff. So probably won't be the best of states by the final whistle, but let's hope we're lifting the trophy.
Paul, will you be going out to watch it anywhere or sitting at home with a hazy IPA?
No, I will be. There'll be hazy IPAs, but I will be at the Celtic Supporters Club, Johnny Fox's in Northbridge in Perth. So yeah, me and one of my good mates will be going to that. A couple of other people are otherwise indisposed, but yeah, we'll be at the game. Similar sentiment to Steve. Hopefully, we can finish off a really solid season with another treble. I'm also heading back to Europe for the first time in 7.5 years, I think. It's my mum's aforementioned tattooed mother's 70th. And we're having a little family holiday. We're having a little family holiday in Greece. We haven't had me, my mum, my brother, both wives, and my now nephew and my mother together since my brother's wedding in 2017. So I've seen both of them, all of them separately, but we've never had everyone together for nearly 8 years or over 8 years. So yeah, that'll be nice. And yeah, back.
Will that pass off smoothly, or will there be lots of sibling rivalry? And,
no, I think there'll be some niggle. Obviously, you don't grow out of that stuff. Anyone that's got siblings knows you revert completely back to your childhood nonsense. So there will be some niggle after a day or two of the warm and fuzzies. There'll be some natural niggle. We're together for 7 days straight. But yeah, and then I'm back in Scotland for a few days, either side of a little round trip to England. So hopefully depends how the League Cup draw lands. But if we get a home tie for the opening tie of the League Cup, I should be in Glasgow for that. So fingers crossed for a home tie. And yeah, I'll finally get back in paradise after a very long layoff.
Speaking of paradise, is Bangkok CSC hosting the game, and you're going to be there, David, watching the cup final?
Yes. Yeah, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock Saturday. Can't wait. Hoping for a hat-trick from Big Ida so people can tell me to shut up. Really above everything else, hoping for a nice early goal, get the feet up, get the party started early. But as long as we win, it doesn't really matter. I'll also be going back to Glasgow last weekend in June for 3 weeks. So if anyone's about, if Monty can bear, I'll be in Cowdenbeath for a while as well. If that's easier for him to come and tell me I'm talking shite to my face, I'll buy him a beer gladly. So yeah, folks, all the very best, and looking forward to another treble. Is that treble number 9? What a time to be a Celtic fan.
What a time. And I'm jealous of all you guys going to CSCs to watch it. I'll be probably sitting in this very position looking at it on my computer on my Jack Jones. But, it's why we have our little community here, our worldwide CSC. I can always join the watch along, of course, as can you. And watch it with some company. Oh, the patter. Indeed, Will. All right. Let's go for it, lads. Let's enjoy a cup final victory. Until then, all the very best.
Well.